Good morning. Happy Sunday, everybody. I am live. I'm live in 3 places, I think. I'm live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. This is extraordinary. I didn't even know I could do this. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about the path to becoming an intuitive facilitator. My journey to learning, how to hold space for other people, and why I came into this work and how it's completely transformed my life in so many ways. And we'll talk about the practical aspects of being an intuitive facilitator, why it's so needed in this world. I'm just going to make sure that I am live on Instagram too. Here we go. Okay. Good morning. This is very cool. Happy Sunday, everybody. I'm just connecting to Instagram as well. I am live, as I mentioned, in 3 places. I'm live on YouTube, on Instagram, and Facebook. This is amazing. I didn't even know I could do that. Thank you for watching. If you are wanting to ask questions, I think, hi, Rhonda. Thanks for being here. Amazing. If you want to ask questions or post comments, I think you need to join me on YouTube. But this is streaming on my personal Facebook and on Instagram as well. So if you want to ask questions during the live, or at some point throughout the talk, you've got to join me on YouTube at Sabrina Rising and post your questions in the comment section. Okay, good. So as I mentioned, today I'm going to talk about my journey to being an intuitive facilitator, and how that's completely transformed my life, and why it is so needed at this time in our world. For those of you that feel called to hold space for other people, if you want to jump into a career that's going to be rewarding and fulfilling, and you just don't know where to start. Perhaps you've felt the call to help others, but you're kind of struggling along the path. So I'm going to answer all these questions today, and hopefully share some valuable insights in terms of why this is. In my humble opinion, of course, I spent the last 25 years doing this work, so I'm a little biased, but in my humble opinion, this is the most rewarding career path that exists. If you are someone who is on a self-healing journey, a personal development journey, my fundamental belief is that part of your story, whatever it is that you're struggling with, whatever you've had to overcome, whether it's a personal issue or a family issue or a health issue, whatever you've had to, all of us have had, some kind of tragedy or adversity or challenge in our lives that's been very big, that's required some major, awareness and personal responsibility, which led to some type of transformation. And so, my humble belief is that we take what we've been through, that part of our story, and we share it with other people. And the sharing part, is the service part, is really what makes the healing more integrated. It feels more real. It feels like you're more embodied in your healing work, and it makes it accessible to other people. I really fundamentally believe that, sharing your story is kind of like the final stages of healing, if you will, and everybody can benefit from the work that we've done, right? So, and again, it doesn't matter if you struggle with something huge or something small. If you just want to have an impact in your community or in your family. What Rhonda has a question already here. What's my best indicated step to becoming financially solvent? Okay, good. I'm going to answer this question in a moment. So this is one of the concerns when people think about, holding space professionally, and I hear this question all the time, is how do I do this work and still be able to provide for myself? And so, I'll get to that in a moment. It's First of all, I'm living proof, and so many of us that are doing this work can attest to this, that you can build a thriving practice. You can do what you love and be able to provide for yourself and your family. Okay, so it's just a matter of having faith and having the right belief system, the right mindset, and taking the aligned actions that will empower you to build this career. Okay, so it's, again, being a healer, and I've learned this myself along the way, is very different than being an entrepreneur. These are two different roles. And so, both of which require mentorship and training and preparedness and understanding in order to be fully successful. Okay, so I'll address both of these in my chat today. So how I became an intuitive facilitator, and a spiritual mentor is, I was in such a my early days, young adulthood, I was in such a bad place emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I was in so much pain that I really hit a significant bottom that forced me to take responsibility for the quality of my life. Nothing I was doing was working. Like I was, I had a career in the corporate world, and that was okay, but I wasn't happy and I wasn't fulfilled, and I couldn't be in a relationship. I didn't have a relationship with myself. And so, I got to a place where I really had no choice but to make a decision to turn my life around, if I wanted to continue living, and if I wanted to find some kind of relief from the pain that I was in. So I immersed myself in inner work, and this is many, many, many years ago, over 25 years ago. And I just, I started with simple things like mindfulness, meditation. I joined spiritual communities. I did, work to help process some of the trauma that I was holding on to. And, if you've had a traumatic childhood, if you've had difficulties in your early life, those events and your response to those events, your reaction to those events, how you internalize the emotions of those events, those all live in your cellular body. Okay, everything that's ever happened to us in our lives is recorded in our bodies. And so, sooner or later, we have to be able to process these feelings or they take over. Right. And I'm a believer, I can speak from direct experience, that our unresolved emotional issues will turn into physical symptoms. Okay. And so it's very important that we take responsibility for our unresolved pain. And, you might be largely unconscious to the pain that you're carrying. But if you notice that there's physical symptoms, or there's ailments that you're struggling with, or there's things that keep reoccurring, patterns that keep reoccurring, things that you keep struggling with, it's because there are unresolved issues that you might be carrying subconsciously that need to be worked out. Okay. So I immersed myself in this because I had really no other option, or there was really no other way for me to continue living. And again, I started with breath work, mindfulness. I joined some spiritual communities and I practiced meditation. The thing that really helped me in my early days was primal release, and really just being able to get in my body and make peace with my body and be able to release some of the emotions that I had been holding on to, as I mentioned. And it was through this process of transformation that I started to come online, right? I started to really wake up to my essential nature. I started to be introduced to, the concept of non-duality and oneness, and feeling free and whole and complete in my own body, and started to improve the relationship I had with myself, my self-esteem, learning to love myself radically, unconditionally. This is the path to wellness, right? And this is the early stages of learning to heal ourselves, which eventually turns into, perhaps for so many of us, the passion to help other people. And so if this is you, please, keep listening and ask questions as I'm sharing, because, I really feel very passionate about encouraging other people to step into their light, to step into their power, and step into their calling, to guide others. Okay. So anyways, I spent, a few years kind of just taking a break from the mundane world and just focusing on my own inner work journey. And I realized, as I emerged from, this very long sabbatical, that there was really nothing else that I could do or that I wanted to do. I really just wanted to help other people transform their lives. I had received so much liberation, and again, I was very determined and very aggressive in my approach to my healing journey. I did things like Vipassana. I did, as I mentioned, I joined spiritual communities. I was meditating. I did primal release work. I spent 2 years in Jungian analysis. So I really committed myself to to improving the quality of my life, and to developing tools that would be sustainable for me, that so I could continue to evolve. And this is very important as we come into our own healing journey. We're not here to sort of fix something, right? Or to get over one specific thing. What we're here to do is actually learn a new way of living. And so we're developing tools that now become, a part of everyday life. And this is our lifestyle from now on, right? And so we learn to live in this new way. And throughout the course of practicing and developing these tools, we're able to open up to so many new possibilities. The possibility of, healthy relationships, of healthy finances, healthy career, just overall health and well-being, and ultimately inner peace, which is what we all want. Okay, so I started just feeling very inspired and very passionate about helping others, and I had a very profound calling to just share what I had experienced, and hopefully that would turn the light on for other people. And so I started doing that, and I started doing it very humbly, just free conversations with people who wanted to listen, who were struggling, who I felt called to hold space for. And it wasn't until I had fully sort of cleared myself of a lot of pain, a lot of fear, a lot of suffering, and a ton of resentment and anger, that I felt myself become more embodied in my intuitive gifts. Okay. And this is true for anybody, that there's this sort of misconception that you have to be born gifted in order to be an intuitive guide or facilitator or a psychic medium or to be in the intuitive arts. And this is not true. So many of us are born with the abilities, natural abilities in early childhood that we can identify. But intuition is something we can develop, right? And everybody has it to some degree, right? We're just so conditioned to not operating from that place. And we're used to listening to our reasoning mind, to our logical brain, and all the things that we've learned about how to do life in general, that we oftentimes will override our own intuitive impulses in order to comply, to conform, or to do what we believe is the right thing, which, oftentimes can leave us feeling empty and disconnected from the essence, from our essence, right? The essence of who we are. And so developing your intuition would be the first step. Okay. And so if you feel, again, the calling is organic. That's not something that can be taught. It's not something that can be, implanted. It's you're either inspired to do this work or you're not. And so this is something that requires honesty and self-reflection. If you feel called to hold space for other people, then the next natural step would be to develop your intuitive abilities. And so I would recommend to anybody to seek guidance and training and mentorship in developing your intuitive skills, because an intuitive facilitator is not, it sounds like one of those abstract terms, like what exactly is an intuitive facilitator? It's a person. It's more than a coach. It's not a therapist, because we're not really therapists. You're not really staying within a system of understanding and categorization and diagnosis in the traditional sense, in the sort of medical sense. Coaching is more about, inspiring and offering solutions and, guiding people through a particular framework that works for the masses, right? A general framework that can work for the masses. An intuitive facilitator is someone who uses their intuitive skills, all of their clairs, and their willingness to hold space for you, their ability to be in your discomfort with you and help connect you to your own power, so that you can guide yourself out of suffering. And this requires a lot of confidence. It requires a lot of clarity, a tremendous amount of faith, and it requires a spiritual practice so that you are connected to something bigger than you, as you are transmitting, this information to whoever it is that you're. Hi, Rhonda. What's Rhonda saying? Sabrina, whenever I listen to you, Rhonda's saying, Sabrina, whenever I listen to you, I get a feeling in my stomach. What is this feeling, Rhonda? I would love to know. Hopefully it's a good feeling. So again, we're using our intuition to help guide others, and everyone will come to inner work from a different place, right? Whether it's a childhood issue, a relationship issue, a financial struggle, or physical ailment, everybody comes to this work, for whatever their reasons are, to come to learn how to be out of pain. Right. And so as an intuitive guide, we know this, right? We know this automatically as we sit with someone, that this is why they're here. And so it's, practicing, developing empathy and offering empathy to the people that are struggling is primary. Okay. And so empathy is a learned skill. You'd be amazed how many of us don't know how to offer true empathy. Empathy is not, I'm sorry for what you're going through, or, feeling bad for the person, or feeling like you wish you could take their pain away. This is not productive, and it's not facilitating, and it's not really helpful to the person. Okay. So again, the first step in becoming an intuitive facilitator is understanding how to hold sacred space that's not infused with your own wounds, with your own judgments, your own projections, your own perceptions of what might be going on, based on what you've been through. Okay, so it's very important for those of you that feel called to hold space and to do this work, that you're doing your own self-healing. Okay. And again, mentorship is something I cannot emphasize enough. I cannot stress enough. So making sure that you are coming to this work for the right reasons, right? Do you love people, right? Do you love holding space for others? Do you have the patience, the compassion, and the empathy developed to be able to really be there for other people, regardless of what they're going through? Right? Are you able to hold space without feeling triggered by what's being shared? Right? And the way to do that is to have this broader context that everything is always happening for this person's highest and best good, regardless of how tragic or horrible or difficult it might have been. The challenges that we're faced with as humans are there to help us grow, to help us expand, to help us neutralize our karma, and to help us step into our full potential. Okay, and ultimately to help us be able to express the love that we are. Okay, and this is what we all want to do so badly, so desperately. Everybody's looking for this. Everyone is looking to find peace and to be fully self-expressed, to fulfill their potential, and to be able to fully embody the love that we are. Okay, so as an intuitive facilitator, it's your responsibility to step into the embodiment of these principles as I'm sharing them. And then, and to really have faith that everybody else can get there with you. Okay. And that's important. Let's see. Rhonda has a comment here. It's actually scary. Fear, anxiety. Those are my initial feelings. And it feels exciting that something is about to change. Good. I love hearing that. I think, and I had a teacher in my early days that said to me that fear is excitement without the breath. Right. And so for, when you notice yourself, I mean, there's primal fear, there's legitimate fear, and then there's the fear of anticipation, the fear of something happening down the road and that you have no control over, but as we step into our power, it can be scary. It can feel very scary. And as you step into the role of intuitive facilitator, I mean, there's so much I can say about this. There's all kinds of fears that can come up. There's the fear of, lack of credibility, or, can I really help people? We have to overcome skepticism and self-doubt if we're going to really embody our gifts, right? And so if you feel called to this work, it's because, your soul knows, your soul already knows. It's your soul's tapping you on the shoulder, telling you that it's time for you to develop this aspect of yourself, and that, there is something here for you. Right. And it doesn't have to mean, a lifelong commitment. It can just mean that this could be this next phase of your personal evolution, to step into the embodiment of these principles, even for your own personal practice, and it should be for your own personal practice first and foremost. And then it should, eventually develop into something that you might want to share with other people. Again, always bringing ourselves back to our own inner work, our own personal practice. How is our personal practice benefiting us, and what is it that we're learning in this personal practice that we want to share with other people? Okay. And the other thing I want to share too is that, oftentimes we come into this calling of wanting to help others, and we don't know exactly how we're going to do that. Okay. So you don't have to have that figured out yet. When I started holding space for people, I had no idea what I was going to say. I just wanted to share. I wanted to share my journey, my experience of transformation, the work that I had done, the things that I had liberated myself from. I mean, I was struggling with eating disorder behavior. I was struggling with, alcohol, self-medicating. I had an impossible relationship with my feelings. I couldn't sit in the fire. I was avoiding my discomfort. I felt very disconnected from humans, from life, from relationships. And so being able to liberate ourselves from myself personally, being able to liberate myself from these things was life-changing. As you can imagine, all I wanted to do was talk about this. I wanted to share it from the mountaintops. And so I started doing that, and I started just having conversations. Your desire to be of service, your pure heart's desire to be of service, and the love that emanates from that place is enough to help inspire transformation and to be the catalyst for self-healing in another individual. And I say this all the time to my students, my facilitators in training, that your energy is more important than your words, the skillfulness and the structure and your ability to guide someone else. It's really not so much about you as it is about the energy that you bring, the inspiration that you bring, and the love that you bring to the container that lets people guide themselves. And so, this is very, very, very important. Of course, there's things we can learn along the way. For those of you that are interested and that you feel called to learn how to facilitate, how to hold space for other people, I have a program that I'm launching at the end of February. It is my first ever community class. I've been training facilitators one-on-one for many years, and I felt inspired to create this community program. It's a group class. And it's a 3-level certification program. In level 1, we focus mainly on developing your intuitive skills and making sure that we've all done the inner work to be able to hold this clean, sacred space as I'm describing it. So really being able to get honest with ourselves about, is this something I can really do? Is my heart into this? Can I hold space for other people in a way that empowers me? Do I have the right boundaries? Are my intentions in the right place? Practicing good energetic hygiene is so important, right? And so for so many of us, we want to hold space because we care, we love people, we want to help, we're excited about our own personal transformation. So we want to share it with other people. And what we learn in those early stages of holding space for others is, how to have good boundaries, how to not get fully enmeshed. An intuitive facilitator is someone who goes very deep with another person. As I mentioned earlier, this is beyond coaching, right? You're literally merging your energy with the person that you're holding space for and feeling their pain and developing empathy and offering them empathy for what they're going through, and using your own intuitive guidance, your hits, and whatever it is you're channeling in order to guide that person based on whatever it is, whatever the moment calls for. So you don't have to have your modality figured out yet, or even the path figured out yet. You can just rely on your own intuitive abilities to help you structure your conversations and your sessions in the early stages. It's really important to be able to do some of this because you're learning about yourself as a facilitator, and you're also learning what works for you, what doesn't work for you, the type of clients you want to work with, the type of space you want to hold, certain things you might want to specialize in, other things you might want to stay away from, right? So this is such a nuanced career path. There's too much to describe here in this conversation. And so, it's very important to sort of stay open in the early stages, is to just have that pure intention. If you know that you have a calling to hold space for others and you want to develop this ability, again, training and mentorship is so important. So I highly recommend that. And also developing your own relationship to, spirit, to, whoever it is that you, whatever that context you have for something bigger than you, and set that intention for, show me how to guide others, for example, is a beautiful intention. Show me how I'm meant to serve, right? And this is part of what I did in the early stages of my journey as an intuitive facilitator, is, really asking for that guidance in my own meditation practice. Like when I was sitting still and being quiet, like asking for the guidance of how am I supposed to help other people? Show me what my path is. And if you pay attention to all the signs, because there's signs happening everywhere all the time, it will start to reveal itself to you, just like it did for me. It was a very organic unfolding. I started to have conversations because I wanted to share my own personal transformation, and that evolved. And they told two friends, and they told two friends, and I had more and more conversations. And over time, I started to see patterns in these conversations that I was having with people. I started to see patterns in human behavior, in human suffering, in human desire, in the need for peace, and how to get there. And so that helped me structure a framework. I developed a signature program called the Self-Realization Experience. And that helped me develop the structure where I would guide people through. Now, keep in mind, the structure is general because, as I mentioned earlier, as an intuitive facilitator, everybody is going to get there in a different way. Everyone comes to this work with their own sort of issues. And it's very, as I mentioned, it's very nuanced. So how we facilitate this type of transformation, what is the right energy? What is the right process? What is the right prompt? How are we going to be the catalyst for this unique individual's personal transformation? Okay, so there are general ways in which we can do this for the masses, but it's very important as an intuitive facilitator to leave that room for the individual and whatever it is that they're going through. Okay. And this requires, again, confidence and skillfulness and the broader context that everyone that is coming to inner work is in some kind of pain, as I mentioned earlier. And the goal is to lead them out of suffering, lead them out of fear and into love. Okay, that's what an intuitive facilitator does, is we're holding the space, we're holding the frequency for the embodiment of unconditional love. And when we can embody unconditional love, everything heals. The body heals, the mind heals, the emotions settle, the nervous system, it feels regulated. We feel at peace, we feel safe in our bodies. And this, we start to see the ripple effect in our circumstances. As I mentioned earlier, intuitive facilitation is different than coaching. Coaching is more about, let's address the circumstances, right? And being an intuitive guide is about, let's address the root issue. What is the core of your suffering? What is the root of this pain? Because the root issues are what's affecting all of your circumstances. And so when we deal with life at the root cause, the circumstances take care of themselves. Okay. And I've seen this in my own life, and I've seen it in other people over and over and over again. And it's miraculous when the light comes on, when we see that internal shift and a person's frequency goes up, and they start to embody unconditional love for themselves, and they all of a sudden become attracted to different things. They become repulsed by other things. For example, you might never want to have alcohol again, or you might easily quit smoking, or you might decide your job that you're doing is not for you anymore, or you might decide that this relationship is toxic and you deserve better. And so embodying unconditional love is literally healing every aspect of your life, and it's changing your mindset, and it's shifting everything about you, and it's allowing you to be on this trajectory of a more fulfilling, more rewarding life. And hopefully, in this, obviously my intention is to inspire you in this talk to stay committed to your calling, to being an intuitive facilitator, because sharing this gift with other people is, in my humble opinion, one of life's greatest rewards. Let me see here. I have a question. Rhonda says, do you use Reiki in your practice? What is energetic hygiene? Okay, I love this question. I don't use Reiki in that specific way, energy in that specific way called Reiki. But energetic hygiene for me is about so embodying practices that allow me to stay clear in my physical body, in my mental capacity, and of course in my emotional realm. So energetic hygiene for me is about taking care of my body, making sure I'm drinking enough water, eating clean, sleeping well. These are just very basic things you can do to practice energetic hygiene physically. And then of course emotionally, if I'm triggered, or if I'm feeling upset or sad, or I have a mindfulness practice where I meditate and I work through my own triggers. I journal. I let go of things. And so there is an inner work process that we do as facilitators to keep ourselves clear as channels. We can't channel unconditional love. You can't channel spirit. You can't channel intuition or the right guidance, receive the intuition for the right guidance for whoever it is you're holding space for, if we are personally obstructed with our own stuff, right? And so I've had periods of my life where I've gone through some personal challenges, where I've taken breaks from holding space for other people, or I have had to take more space for myself to be able to clear my own energy so that I could come to a container open and willing and ready to serve. Okay. And this is important because, so many of us feel like we have to know what to say or know what to do, or, or have the right language or the right structure. And oftentimes when we're holding space for other people, it's really about just getting our own self out of the way and allowing for this that our higher power, spirit, God, love, universal intelligence, whatever you refer to it as in your own personal practice, to come through and to penetrate the container and to be able to transmit through you. Hi, Jolie. How are you this morning? Let me see. We have a question from Jolie. Hi, Sabrina. Does this mean acknowledging the circumstances without making the other person the enemy? I mean, this is a good question. I would certainly never make another person the enemy under all circumstances. We want to acknowledge the circumstances and then take personal responsibility for the circumstances, if I'm understanding your question correctly. Whatever is happening, and I mentioned this earlier, is happening for your own highest and best good, regardless of how challenging these circumstances are. Okay. We can be going through something very painful, or perhaps a person has hurt our feelings, or they've triggered us in some way. Of course, today I'm talking within the context of holding space for other people, but this can happen even in your container, right? If you are a coach or a guide or a healer, you're aspiring to be, and you're just getting started in your practice, and your client is triggering you. Again, we want to be able to acknowledge our own personal experience, and perhaps that means taking yourself out, taking a pause, just like you would in any human interaction. If you're feeling triggered in your relationship, you would take a pause and go and work through your own triggers so that you can come back to the conversation, come back to the interaction in your heart. Okay, this is so important. And I advocate for this in everybody's life. This is a non-violent way to deal with our own emotional reactions. People are not our enemies. They are our teachers, especially those that trigger us. Those are our greatest teachers, the ones that really bring up, parts of us where we are lacking in empathy or patience or love or compassion for ourselves. And so oftentimes the people who trigger us are just really pointing to a need for us to be able to love ourselves more deeply, to accept ourselves more deeply, and to be more embodied ultimately in the truth of who we are. Okay. So I hope that was helpful. So again, for those of you that are considering, the path to developing your intuition and holding space for other people, again, whether it's you're a coach or a healer or a guide, it's very important to come to the space knowing that you are embodying something that the person that you're sitting with is deeply desiring, and that it's your job to make that available in the most empathetic, unconditionally loving, accessible way possible. Here we have another question here. Hi, Steffi. Thanks for joining us. Steffi says, I love how triggers are about a need to love ourselves more deeply. Nice to see you live again. It's very nice to see you too. Yes, thank you. I thank you for that acknowledgement. And Julie says, yes, I agree. I've had a complete perspective shift on this over the past year, and it's been like a mirror. Yeah, beautiful. It is. And this is such a beautiful awareness. I love that you're having this awareness, and it can really transform the way we live our lives. When you think about it, if you are a person who's on a path to personal development, if you are developing your consciousness and you're here to live a more, enlightened life, even just enlightened in your own personal practice and whatever gifts that you share with the world, they don't have to be specifically, in a coaching container or as an intuitive guide or healer or coach, just in your own personal practice. All of life is learning. all of life is an opportunity for growth and expansion. And the way that we relate to life will either allow us to grow more, to feel more deeply, and to become more tuned in, and to become more, as I mentioned, enlightened and liberated, or it can do the opposite, right? It can create a tremendous amount of cynicism and skepticism, and a lack of trust, and a lack of safety, and a disbelief that there is something bigger, better, more loving, more benign that's actually at work or at play in our lives. Okay. So for those of you that are on a journey to developing your intuitive gifts, as I mentioned, you don't have to be born gifted. You can develop these skills and learn how to use them. You can start very small using your intuition, which we all already have it. And I'm sure you've had moments where you've come across something and you're just like, I knew that was going to happen, or you've had an intuitive hit and you think, oh, this person, I know I was just thinking about this person and here they are calling me, or something like that, and I've talked about this in some of my videos. Just starting small, leaning into those small intuitive hits and learning to trust them is going to expand this ability. It's a muscle like anything else. Okay. And when you marry this with a deep desire to be of service to other people, to really hold space for people from that unconditionally loving place, knowing that it's not your job to fix them. It's not your job to create some kind of guarantee some kind of outcome. It's not your job to have all the answers. Okay. The purpose of facilitating is simply to hold that space, to empower people to come into direct contact with that feeling of unconditional love. And when that happens for them, the answers become very clear. Okay. And from a spiritual context, there is no wrong choice. There's only the choices that we make that are meant to serve our highest and best good. Right. And so this is a very important context as we are guiding others. We're helping them sort of see that the journey is beautiful, and it's not meant to be fearful. It's not meant to be painful. It's not meant to be riddled with scarcity. It's not meant to be lonely or sad, or any of the things that it has been for that person. That people can come out of their traumatic experiences and learn to integrate them and forgive, and really move on with life. And as you're moving on, you're seeing that, we're letting things go. And as we're letting things go, we're making room for more blessings. We're making room for more abundance. We're making room for just being fully self-expressed, the fulfillment of our potential, which is a beautiful gift that we can give ourselves and we can give other people as well. If anyone has any questions about being an intuitive facilitator, please feel free to chime in. Here we go. Steffi says, I'm sending loving energy out before I have a conversation is so important. Do you agree with, I find sending loving energy out before I have a conversation is so important. Do you agree with this? Yes, I absolutely agree with this. This is thank you for your comment. I think I want to say that it's important to embody this loving energy, especially if you're going into a conversation that you feel might be triggering, or you feel might be challenging, or you feel nervous about, how that conversation is going to go, whether it's a conversation that you're having in your personal life, or a conversation that you're having with a client, or whoever it is that you're facilitating transformation for. Embodying that loving energy and sending it out to the person that you're going to be interacting with can really impact the space. Okay, this is something that really doesn't get talked about often enough. So I'm really glad you brought it up, Steffi, is really just sharing from our hearts and going in with the intention that, I want this to be a loving interaction, and I want both of us to benefit from this loving interaction. This is one of the many blessings of being an intuitive facilitator and using our intuitive gifts when we're sitting and holding space for others, is that it's mutually beneficial, right? We are receiving all of the loving energy that we're transmitting. It's for us as well, right? And so give yourself permission to learn and grow in these containers, in your client interactions, or even in your personal relationships. Again, this is all applicable. Personal practice leads to professional practice for so many of us. And so these are all applicable, and watch what happens when you're coming in with just unconditional love and compassion. Okay. So again, this is about embodiment. Being an intuitive facilitator is about trusting your guides, trusting your inner knowing, trusting your calling, trusting yourself, developing your abilities, again, starting very small and developing that muscle. I had conversations with friends. I would just help a friend out or help somebody out without any agenda, without any type of formal structure around these conversations. And I would notice as I was holding space and helping that, I oftentimes would give advice that was very helpful, or that was, people would come back and say, wow, that really helped me shift something. And so just start small in your conversations and in your containers and see what happens, right? Trust yourself, because the more we're able to serve others, and again, this is my fundamental belief, that those of us, and I say this all the time, those of us that have found true meaning in this life have found some measure of service. Okay. And it doesn't matter what that service is. It can be, as I mentioned, coaching, it can be guiding, it can be, it can be being a psychic medium, it can be, teaching, it can be parenting, it can be caregiving, you could be serving coffee, it doesn't matter what the job is. It's the energy that you do this job with, the energy that you serve with, that can be highly impactful and transformational for the people that you're interacting with. Okay. And for those of you that are feeling called to being a professional intuitive facilitator, as I mentioned earlier, I have a class that I'm launching at the end of February. It's my first ever community class. I usually train facilitators in a one-on-one container. I'm very excited to do this on a community level. It is a 3-level certification program that walks you through all of the ins and outs, all of the nuances of being an intuitive guide, starting with developing your skills, finding your center as an intuitive, deciding what modality you're going to focus on, or modalities you might want to focus on, and moving into more advanced skills and techniques, and ultimately how to align with your work, and how to take that leap into the unknown. How do you develop a practice without any clients, not knowing where to start, and being able to attract people that want to learn from you, that want to be in your presence and in your energy, and ultimately create a thriving practice where you can still provide for yourself and your family. So these are all components that go into the certification program, and I wish I had something like this when I was getting started. I learned through direct experience and through trial and error what worked for me. I went through phases where I had no boundaries and I had to learn boundaries. I went through phases where I was taking on a lot of the energy of my clients, and I had to learn to really separate myself, which really empowered my own personal growth as well, in my personal life. And I had to learn how to really get clear on the type of work I wanted to do. And I've had different focuses over the years. In early stages, I worked with a lot of people that were struggling with addiction and child abuse. And I spent many years facilitating inner child work. And then I opened up my gifts to mediumship and psychic guidance and intuitive guidance. And so I started focusing more on that. And again, this was through my own personal evolution. You might find that your calling changes as you evolve as a guide and a facilitator and as a healer. Again, and I say this in all my classes, consider that every single one of us has the capacity to channel higher intelligence. And when you align with that capacity and you create that intention to be a channel, your gifts will start to emerge. And there can be several, and there can be some that are calling more of your focus at one particular point in time, and that can shift into something else, and that can shift into something else. And so it's not a straight line. Just like inner work and healing and evolving and growing is not a straight line. The path to being an intuitive facilitator is the same. This isn't a regular 9-to-5 job. It's an expression of who you are, an expression of your love, and an expression of your power and your gifts and your trust in yourself, your trust in your relationship with your higher power, whatever that is for you, to transmit through you exactly what is needed for the person that you're sitting with. I had a question earlier about becoming more financially solvent. And this is the same way we learn to trust, our own inner guidance to be able to facilitate transformation for someone. We have to also be able to trust our ability to be provided for while we're doing work that we love. This is, again, it's just a mindset shift. So many of us are natural caregivers. We're naturally empathic. We're naturally intuitive. And so the desire to help others feels like it's a easy thing to step into, a natural next step, especially if you've had a lot of your own personal transformation. And yet the money part still feels wobbly. For so many of us in spiritual community, especially, it can feel very unsettling. It can feel very difficult, to master. We have issues around our relationship with money, and this is something I talk about in one of my videos. We project a lot of our fears, a lot of our lack of safety, perhaps the guilt that we feel around money, and so on. It's important to bring money into the conversation and to see it as an expression of love. The same way you're transmitting healing energy and receiving healing energy, you're also receiving love in the form of abundance when you're doing what you love. And I firmly believe that when we step into our power, we step into our calling, we find that the universe collaborates with us and shows us support in so many ways, by bringing us clients and by bringing us the income that we need to sustain ourselves in order to keep doing this work. I believe that being an intuitive facilitator, whatever your modality is, whatever your structure is, whatever your focus on, whatever your focus is, this is the most important job that we can do, is to help alleviate the suffering on the planet. It doesn't matter if you're doing body work, breath work, if you're doing, mindfulness work, meditation, if you're teaching, affirmations, if you're teaching manifestation, whatever it is you're teaching, this is the most important work that we can do, is to help guide others out of suffering, because the suffering is what keeps perpetuating in our planet. It keeps promulgating fear, and fear creates reaction, and reaction creates bad behavior, unfortunate behavior, painful behavior, and we're all witness to this in our planet to varying degrees, right? And so those of us that are light workers, that are here to really help alleviate suffering, are doing our part in creating this ripple effect to help eliminate this suffering and help people out of fear. And this, we'll never know the full magnitude of the gifts that we're sharing, and how far they're reaching, and how many people we've actually helped. When you help transform the life of even just one person, you've impacted their entire community, their entire nucleus. And I believe that if we keep doing this work, and there's more of us doing this work, that we can certainly affect the quality of the overall level of consciousness of the planet, which is my deepest desire. Here we have a comment here. Jolie says, that's been my hardest leap. I'm actually thinking about getting a job to sustain myself and my daughter. I hear you. Okay, good. While I build my business. Okay. And here's what I want to say about that, Jolie. That's not a bad idea. Okay. It's not a bad idea. What I want to caution you as, and this happened to me personally. Okay. So I speak from personal experience. When I started holding space in the early stages, I took a job, like sort of a job just to have money coming in while I was building my practice. And it's actually a funny story. It's the only job that I've ever been fired from. And I laugh about it. I did this job for 3 months. I didn't love the job. I just did it because I was afraid that I wasn't going to be provided for. Okay. And I say this, it's coming through for me to say to you, Jolie, because you brought it up. Make sure that, yes, it's very funny. Make sure that you're not doing this from a place of fear. Okay. There's nothing wrong with having income, with, not quitting your day job until you feel like you've reached that level of comfort or that level of faith. Okay. It's not about making sure that you have enough money coming in, because this is a fear-based consciousness. And as a facilitator or a coach or a healer or a guide, you're here to hold the space for the realm of infinite possibilities, right? So you're here to show up in a way that's fearless, right? That's the embodiment of love, the embodiment of faith, the embodiment of certainty that being connected spiritually, being connected to your calling, and gives you that level of confidence that everything's going to be okay. right? Everything's going to be okay. When you're coaching people, Jolie, you're essentially messaging that, all is well, right? You're guiding them towards the positive outcome that they can manifest for themselves, they can create for themselves with the right actions. And so if you're showing up in your coaching containers with scarcity in the background and fear of not being provided for, and feeling wobbly about your safety, as your financial safety, that's going to transmit in the space as well. Okay. So as much as I want to encourage people to take practical steps that align with what feels safe to them, it's not about, I need to make sure I'm making enough money. It's about, can you use this part-time job that you're taking just to help you build your faith and confidence that you will be provided for, that you're going to feel stable and financially secure in the job that you're doing. Because when I took the leap, and again, I was driving home, kind of chuckling to myself and to God and the universe that I had been fired from this job, saying, okay, I got it. The message was very clear that, stop pretending like I'm not going to take care of you, like I'm not going to provide for you. And this was the message I got very clearly. And so I ventured out into the universe and into the world, and started holding space and just trusting and practicing in this faith. And of course, it was, it was a little bit challenging at first because I didn't have any income coming in, but it quickly picked up and it quickly expanded because I focused on the love and the passion and the belief that I had in what I was doing. Okay. So I hope that's helpful. Again, this is not a straight line. Being an intuitive facilitator is something we are self-made, right? We're not, you can't, I can offer a certification program and train you in all the modalities and all the skillfulness and all the nuanced ways in which we can hold space to offer successful transformation for those clients that are willing to receive it from us. And you will have your own individual journey in terms of how that looks, what you have to transform in your own life in order to make that possible. Okay. So it is something that is constantly shifting. It's constantly changing, and it's always bringing up new things for us to work through. Right. And so you might find that, like I have in my business many times changed my focus or changed my ideal client or who it is that I want to work on with and what it is that I want to focus on. And there is always an adjustment period that comes with that, financial adjustment period, an adjustment period of new clients, and so on. But again, we're here not because we want to build a regular 9-to-5 job. We're here because we want to live our calling, and living your calling requires you to be the artist of your life. It requires you to be creative, to put out offerings that are from your heart, from your soul, that are expressions of you, and trusting all the way that you will be provided for, and making peace with that relationship to financial abundance, allowing for that to penetrate as well, allowing for that to reach you, because you are worthy. You are worthy of the love that you're sharing, and you're worthy of that love being expressed in all ways, money included. Yes. And good. I'm glad that's helpful. And Jolie says, definitely not a straight line. That's exactly right. It's not a straight line. And so, wherever you are in your journey, again, there is, I always invite you to come back to your calling, come back to why are you doing this, come back to the joy of being of service to other people, and remember what you've gone through in your own life that led you here. What was it that you transformed within yourself that really sparked this desire to share it with other people? What is the reward, right, that you're receiving as you're guiding others? That the way that it fills your heart is something that you can't replace that. You can't replace that. And I encourage anybody who's struggling on the path to holding space for other people not to give up. Don't get discouraged because you're not making enough money, or you don't know if you have enough of an impact, or you don't know who's listening, or again, you're riddled with self-doubt around, I went through this myself in my early stages of, I don't have the right credentials. I don't have all the initials I need at the end of my name, and so on. At the end of the day, I found that people don't really care about that. What people care about is your heart, your commitment, your willingness, and ultimately the results that they receive as a byproduct of working with you, as just by being in your presence, by being in your loving presence. And again, keep it simple. As I talked about at the beginning of this chat, I talked about developing empathy. Empathy is a learned skill. Most people will come into your sphere and they've never received true empathy. And just by offering that, that's already healing. It's already so helpful to them. Okay. And so this is, again, this is such a time in our world, especially with everything going on. I mean, in fact, there's never a time in our world where healing is not needed, but especially with everything going on recently, it's such a time for those of us that feel called to step into our calling and to really take personal responsibility, not only for our own healing journey, but for how we want to guide other people. Okay. This is, for me, it's this year is all about taking action and doing things that that really bring us joy. You deserve to live a life that's fulfilling and rewarding, and that is a true expression of your nature. Here we go. Steffi says, I'm setting an intention for my business and looking at it each day and feeling the gratitude of it happening. That's beautiful, Steffi. Do you also feel that having gratitude is so important for growth in our profession? Absolutely. Gratitude is even just as a practice every day, to wake up every day being grateful for your gifts, being grateful for your practice, being grateful for your life, being grateful for your capacity to share your gifts with other people, even if it's just in your, family or your local community. Having gratitude is an amplifier. It's a direct amplification of whatever gifts, whatever blessings you're already feeling grateful for. Okay. And so what we're thankful for amplifies, and it brings in more of those blessings, because now you're in a vibration of gratitude, you're in a vibration of appreciation, and appreciation brings in amplification, right? More of that which we appreciate. So I would say, yes, having gratitude is so important for our growth, being grateful for the clients we have, being grateful for anything, being grateful for, the little bit of income that you have, for perhaps in the early stages, and being, wow, I'm so grateful I was able to finally have a client that I can charge, or I can finally, do this one thing in my business, or I can finally, being grateful for the little things will help expand and grow, whatever it is that we desire in any area of our lives. Let me see. Rhonda says, this conversation absolutely fills my heart and touches my soul. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad, Rhonda. Thank you for being here. So again, for those of you that are interested, I'll post a link to the facilitator training. Level 1 starts February 27th, and it goes for 8 weeks. Level 1 is all about doing our own inner work and really embodying our gifts and developing our intuition, so we can develop a practice, personal practice and professional practice, on a solid foundation of integrity, of intention, of daily rituals that will help. Rhonda, you had mentioned energetic hygiene before. We talk about energetic hygiene in level 1. Daily practices that will help you be clear and self-confident in the work that you're doing, and can get you started in really creating this container that you're developing for yourself, for your clients, that's sustainable and that can bring in real healing and deep transformation as well. Okay. And so, as I mentioned, it's not a straight line. There is a 3-level process that will guide you through the nuts and bolts of it, all the nuances and the practical aspects of facilitating, having a brand, having being in alignment with this brand, having a niche, having an idea of who it is that you're serving, being comfortable with what you're charging and things like that. Those are like business skills that we will touch upon in level 3, and they're important, right? They're important because we want to be able to be in the world and doing what we love, and so it's important to make peace with the mundane aspect of being an intuitive facilitator and what that means in practical reality. Okay, so thank you so much for those of you that joined me Again, I'll post the link to the facilitator training that starts on February 27th. And I look forward to seeing you all there. You can join me here live. I'll be back live on YouTube for my Oracle Hour on Wednesday at 5 p.m. for our regular programming. In the meantime, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them at the end of this video. Happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Sending you all so much love. You're welcome, Julie. Thank you for being here. Bye, everybody.